Are you applying to dental school? Are you applying to 3, 4, 5 schools and you're trying to get some tips and some success stories so that you make sure that you get in? Stay tuned because we've got some tips and we've got some information about how to get into dental school. Stay tuned. Hey, this is Dr. Darwin, a new dentist coach, with another episode of Ask Dr. Darwin on the New Dentist podcast show, where you ask questions and get information about how to get into dental school, how to survive dental school, how to get into residency, how to survive residency, and then also life as a new dentist after dental school and after residency. For those of you that are listening and or watching for the first time, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Dr. Darwin Speaks. Hit the notifications, hit that bell, boom, 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 so that you are notified when new episodes come out on Sundays, Saturdays, and also on Wednesdays. I don't want you guys to miss these episodes that have been helping a lot of people, okay? Today, we're going to be talking about getting into dental school, and this is the time where people are applying for the upcoming cycle, right? The upcoming cycle, coming up with a list of schools, taking the DAT, filling out their applications online, all of that. But we've got an insight as to someone who just recently got accepted into dental school, and she's going to be going in a couple of months. Today, we're going to be joined with future student Dr. Epiphany Fitzpatrick, and she's going to tell us, and you guys are going to learn the following. You're going to learn why dentistry for her. She's going to share with us her list of school, how she chose them and why, her biggest challenge and how she overcame them. And then also she's going to talk about the interviews and the interview questions and what the interview day was like, right? And she's going to give some tips. Also, she's going to share with us her list of her final selection and basically how she came up with that. And then the bonus, and this is why you guys have to listen and watch all the way through. Don't skip it. The bonus, which is going to be advice. She's going to share some advice for pre-dental students. So, welcome, student Dr. Epiphany. How are you?
Thank you. I'm great. How are you?
I'm great. Hey, first of all, congratulations for getting into dental school. Getting into probably, I think it was maybe your first choice.
Yes, number one choice.
Number one choice. So that's awesome. We applaud you. That's a big feat. That's a big feat. So let's talk a little bit about that. Before we get started, though, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, etc.
Okay, so like he said earlier, my name's Epiphany Fitzpatrick. Everybody calls me Pip. I'm from Houston, Texas. I received my undergraduate degree from Pepperdine University. It's in California. I received that in 2016 with the BS in sports medicine. And then after that, I took a year off and then went ahead and got my master's from Hampton University in medical science and just graduated from that program this year in 2019. So I'll be heading off to TUFTS and I'll be class of 2023.
Awesome. TUFTS, another one, going to TUFTS. All right. You guys heard that, TUFTS. So if you have TUFTS on your list of schools, you gotta watch this video. You gotta listen. You gotta take some notes. All right. This is why these types of videos and this episodes and this series, getting into dental school, is so helpful. All right, you guys are going to get the inside track about getting into TUFTS. So let's get started with these questions. So first of all, why dentistry? Why did you pick dentistry?
So I actually used to just only be interested in sports medicine, which is why I got my degree in sports medicine. So dentistry was not even on my radar at all in an undergrad. So I planned on going to medical school. That was my thing. I was going to be interested in sports medicine. That was the route that I was going to take. However, I was never truly 100% satisfied with it. I was just kind of like, okay, I'm good at science. I'm good at math. Cool, med school, it is. And of course, that's what all my family members were telling me. So whenever I graduated from Pepperdine, I was like, you know what, guys, I think I want to take a year off. Still going to go to med school, but I'm going to go ahead and take a year off. In 2015, a year before I actually graduated, I started a boys foster home, a group home for foster boys. But I did not start receiving kids until after I graduated. So after I graduated from Pepperdine in California, I moved back home in Houston. And that's where I started receiving boys in this group home. So I worked and ran the group home for a year before I started at Hampton. And while I was working at the group home, while I was working with the boys, you have to set up a lot of different appointments. You have to set up eye appointments, medical appointments, dental appointments. And, these kids are a ward of the state, so they are under Medicaid. So and Medicaid, as a lot of you might not know, a lot of dentists actually do not accept Medicaid. So it was incredibly difficult for me to schedule appointments for their dental appointments. And that's kind of when I started looking more into the industry, because I'm just like, why are these people not accepting it? They're either not accepting, or it would take about 9 to 10 months before they were seen, which was completely unacceptable. So I started to look more into the dental industry, and I started to become more intrigued by it, because I'm just like, we definitely need a lot more dentists who accept Medicaid. And that summer, before I started at Hampton, I decided to start shadowing a few dentists just to see, kind of what that world was like, and absolutely fell in love with it. Never wanted to leave. I always came back with a smile on my face, and I was like, I really, really think that I was meant to start this group home, to be introduced to the dental industry, to fall in love with the dental industry. So now what do I need to do? So that's how I started to be introduced to the dental field. And instead of applying to dental school, I decided, how do I become a better applicant? That's when I decided, okay, let's look into some medical science programs or some post-bac programs. Since I did take a year off, whenever you go on your dental school interviews, they will probably ask you, you took some time off, what did you do during that time? And I can't say, oh, well, I really didn't do much. So to make myself a better applicant, I decided to enter into a master's program. I decided to shut down my group home while I was in my master's program, so I could be able to, run it and focus only on my studies. But I do plan on reopening it up after dental school when I become a dentist. But that's why dentistry.
Man, that is an awesome story. I mean, just filled with, really helping a segment of the population that needs help, and then also the segment of the population that needs help with oral health care, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and that's a great thing that you've done, and hopefully you can continue to help them as a dentist as you get through dental school and continue with your career. So that's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. Wow, that's an amazing story. So second question, let's talk a little bit about the list of schools. So tell us a little bit about that process, and basically, how did you come up with your list and why?
Okay, so first and foremost, since I was new to the dental industry, didn't know much about a lot of dental schools. So what I did to start the process was I went ahead and bought this thing called the Dental Explorer through IDID.org. And this Dental Explorer basically literally tells you everything that you need to know about every single dental school there is. It's about $25, very, very cheap. So, and it's a 1-year subscription, so you have a lot of time. So I went in, literally read on all of the dental schools, class size, their mission statement, DAT scores, whatnot, diversity, anything that you want to know, it's on there. And then once I started reading through everything, I also was looking at the requirements, because there are some dental schools that want you to take anatomy and physiology. There are some that don't, stuff like that. I started making a spreadsheet of the different dental schools that I was interested in. I had about 30. So I was like, okay, I need to narrow this down a little bit. So once I started to kind of narrow it down to about 15, 16, in my opinion, it was still too much. A lot of people do apply to a lot of schools, with that number, but for me, it was just too much. Right. I decided to look into Impressions Day to help me narrow it down. So I ended up going to VCU Impressions Day, Howard's Impressions Day, and TUFTS. TUFTS was my first one, so it kind of, set the bar. Whenever I went to TUFTS, I was sold. So for me, I was like, okay, this is where I really, really want to go. I'll go ahead and try out the other schools, but for some reason, I just really, really felt like I was meant to be at TUFTS. So that's how I was able to narrow my list down. And then I ended up going to the SNDA convention that they have every single year. And that's when I was exposed to the University of Michigan. And I met one of the dean of admissions there. He was very, very nice. fell in love with him. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll, start looking into Michigan a little bit more, but still Tufts was, my number one. So I ended up actually only applying to 2 dental schools, Tufts and University of Michigan, which a lot of people are like, oh gosh, girl, you're brave. So just kind of putting all my eggs in one basket at this point.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're scaring people right now. 2 schools? That's it?
Yeah.
Well, what if this and what if that? Who did you meet at Michigan?
I met Dr. What is his name? This is terrible. He's in my phone. Give me a second.
Was it Dr. Esther?
Dr. Esther, thank you. It literally just came to me, Dr. Esther.
Dr. Esther, yeah.
Yep.
And you went to the SNDA convention. Where was it located?
It was in Orlando last year.
Okay, yep. We were there in Orlando. Yep.
And we'll be in DC this year as well.
DC this year as well. Yep. So that's great. So you basically use a couple of things. You use the IDEA Explorer, and I'm going to send a link. You guys look up right here. There's a link to that IDEA Explorer, and we're going to be actually having a giveaway coming up later this summer. Where we're going to be giving away 4 of those Explorers through to some pre-dental students to help you come to get your list together, and then you also had a chance to go to some impression days, kind of like an opportunity like to have some meet and greets, and then you did the ultimate thing, which was go to one of the conventions where you get a chance to meet not only the students, but you get a chance to meet admissions directors and other people that are connected to the schools, which is a great opportunity to kind of talk a little bit more one-on-one before the application process. So that's amazing. So that was great. All right. Third thing. What was your biggest challenge or challenges? What were some of the biggest challenges that you encountered during this application process, and how did you overcome it?
So during the application process, I submitted my application June 20 something, so very, very, very early. So the biggest thing that I struggled with was staying confident. Like I said, I only applied to 2 schools. So having to wait about 5 months before I even heard from any school regarding an interview or regarding yes or no, that was just the biggest thing I struggled with. Like I said, I'm pretty much putting all my eggs in one basket. So during these 5 months, I was like, maybe I should apply to 10 more schools just to, make sure. I was just in my head a lot just because, you don't hear from anybody for that long just because, that's just the process.
Right.
But I went ahead and overcame it just by talking to I have a few friends who attend Tufts right now. So I spoke to them a lot. They were sending me articles like, hey girl, it's okay. You're more than qualified. You already spoke to the Dean of Admissions here. Like, you feel pretty confident about your application. So just, relax, chill out, focus on your master's program, focus on your classes. And it'll be okay.
Cool. Well, that's good. That's a great tip for people too. Apply early.
Yes.
Dun, 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 dun. Newsflash. Apply early. So that's good. All right. So let's talk about the interviews. What was your interview day like? What were some of the questions that you kind of remember, and any tips that you have for some pre-dentals about the interview day?
Yeah, so my interview day was actually very, very relaxing. It was very laid back and chill at Tufts. So pretty much they kind of came out, introduced themselves, the Dean of Admissions and the interview panel and everything like that, introduced themselves, and then they had us break up into different groups just to get to meet everybody. Then they asked if you had to design your own dental practice, what would it look like? How would you go about it? So it was nice because, I was able to speak to people who, I didn't even know, and we were able to create our own dental practice. And in a way, that's a good way to kind of start, getting the ball running in your head. Like, okay, how do I want my dental practice to run? What do I want to accept? What kind of insurance, stuff like that. Then we went up to the front and we introduced our dental practice, which in my opinion got rid of my nerves because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. I just want to do perfectly. But then, hey, go up to the front and just introduce your dental practice. Here we go, which I really, really liked. Then after that, we went ahead and had lunch before the one-on-one interviews, which again, knocked the nerves off as well. Cause, we were just sitting around talking, and some of the dental students came in and spoke to us just to, give us confidence boosters before we went into our one-on-ones. And then we went into our individual interviews after that. So we had, my interview was with a 4th year and then a professor at the school, a dentist at the school. It was more, my interview process was more of like a conversation. So it's probably going to be a lot different than other dental schools, or even some of the other people that were in my interview group actually got really intense questions. However, for some reason I didn't, so I lucked up. But it was more of a conversation. It was, hey, tell me more about your group home. Tell me about why dentistry, stuff like that. And it was just very, very calming and relaxing. And one thing that I did love that she said was, we're not even looking at your academics at that point, because your academics and your scores is how you got here. We just want to get to know you as a person, which I loved, because some of my colleagues who got interviews at different schools, they had to, in their interview, explain stuff on their transcripts. And I was like, oh, I hope that I don't have to explain stuff, because it's just very, very nerve-wracking. So I just love how TUFTS was like, listen, you got where you are now due to your academics and your scores, and now we just want to get to know you as a person. And then she asked me a few ethical questions. So definitely, re-up on your ethics issues. And it was just a simple question like, you're married, you have a husband, and he's having a lot of pain, and he's asking you as a dentist, hey, can you go get some medication for me? Just go ahead and take it off the shelf or something like that. Bring it back home to me. How do you respond to that? Him being your husband, and at the same time, on the other end, you're being a dentist. Like, how do you, deal with that struggle?
Right.
So, it was a very, very nice conversation. And then they also took us on a big tour of the dental school, and that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Wow. Well, a couple of things that you said were very good, but one of the things that stuck out was how you got the interview, right? Your academics, your scores, and probably the third thing was probably your personal statement.
Right, exactly.
And I'm sure in that personal statement, you had some information about that group home.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of your story. So I'm sure all of that, made it very easy for them to, want to get you to the next phase, which is a one-on-one, face-to-face.
Mm-hmm.
So that's awesome. So again, guys, the importance of academics, yes, your scores and DATs, yes, but also that personal statement. That's your ability to kind of sift through and shine through your application. So that's great. So final selection. So how did you come up with, how did you decide as to what school you were going to go to after you interview? Your 2 schools were Tufts and Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about how that process went for you.
So I actually did not end up getting into Michigan. So I guess the decision was pretty much made for me. But like I said, Tufts was my number one. So it was kind of like, once I got Tufts, it was Michigan, what? Kind of in my mind, So there wasn't really much of a thought process. Tufts is very, very expensive. But for me, my thought process was, I would rather be happy than go somewhere to save money. But that's always that's my personality, happiness over having to pay for things. I'll worry about that later. So yeah, it wasn't really like much of a decision process, just because, like I said, after Impressions Day, I was completely sold. After speaking to the Dean of Admissions there, completely sold. So
good. Well, it made it very easy then.
Yeah, it's very easy.
Made very easy. All right, cool. So the last question, and then we're going to wrap it up. This is the bonus. So for those of you that have been listening all the way through, ding, 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 it's bonus time. So look, advice. What advice do you have for pre-dentals? I mean, you had a couple of things I think you mentioned, which was apply early. I think I heard that. I heard about, using the Dental Explorer to kind of help you, learn a little bit more about the different schools.
Mm-hmm.
That'll help with your search process. But what else? What are some? Give us 2 or 3 pieces of advice that you would want to give to those pre-dentals that are now applying and trying to sift through this process that you were going through last year.
Okay, yeah, definitely. Number one for me would be to network. Whenever I was going to these Impressions Days, when I went to the conferences, I made sure that people that I walked out of the room with a few people knowing my name, and I made sure I kept in contact with them. When I was at Impressions Day, like I said, I made it a point to meet the Dean of Admissions to let them know, hey, I'm in your current application cycle for this year coming up. Please just keep me on your radar. These are, let's contact each other later. So later on, I emailed probably about a few weeks later, and we kept in touch throughout the entire application process. The one thing that I did love during my application process with me networking was the Dean of Admissions at Tufts actually called me the day before my DAT because I was freaking out, and he prayed with me on the phone, and he was like, "Hey, you're gonna do terrific. Just no nerves. This is your last hurdle." So it's great to have and maintain that relationship with very, very important people, because that does go a long way.
Right.
Another thing, I became an IDID scholar, increasing diversity in dentistry scholar, and I highly, highly recommend that. Because through that program, they were the people that sent me to the convention last year. That was in Orlando, Florida. And they have different symposiums that they'll send you to at Tufts. They'll have different ways. I think they also sent people to Chicago for the dental, what was that? The dental, there's another dental convention this past Chicago, was it?
It was the IDIA Go Dental, where they had about 60 schools there. And I'm going to put the link to the IDID program, Increasing Diversity in Dentistry. Here's a link right here, so you guys can check that out and find out more about becoming a scholar. There you go, right there. Boom.
Definitely. So network is for sure my number one piece of advice, because it's not always about what you know, it's who you know, for sure.
There you go. It's not about who you know. It's it's not about what you know. It's about who you know, and it's about who they know.
Exactly.
Right. I say that all the time. Great. Anything else that you can think of, or those are probably the two biggest ones for you?
Definitely the two biggest ones for me. And also for me, make sure that you know why these different schools are on your list. Like, don't just pick a few, you know what I mean? Like, don't have a long list just because it's like, okay, that school sounds good. Like, know exactly why you want to choose this school, and ask yourself before you start looking at other schools, and before you start looking at the list of dental schools through that Explorer page. Ask yourself what you want in a dental school. So for me, diversity was the biggest thing for me, which is why Tufts is great, because they're the most diverse dental school. I also knew that I didn't want to be a part of a small class, and Tufts is a class of 204, I believe.
Number two behind NYU. You're right. As far as the number of students, you're right.
Yep. So, just know what you want in a dental school. And I think that will also bring you happiness as well, in choosing what you want. And then I think it'll also save you a lot of money in terms of, applying to a large list of dental schools and you not even know why. So.
Right. Well, there you guys go. There it is. The bonus advice. 3 things: network, becoming an IDID scholar, and then also know why you're selecting certain schools. Know why that school is on your list. And also probably figure out how you're going to contribute to that school. Right?
Exactly.
That may be a tie-in to why you're actually selecting that school. There you go. 1, 2, 3 pieces of advice from future student Dr. Epiphany Fitzpatrick. Hey, thank you so much for sharing your story. How can people get in contact with you if they have questions? What's the best way?
The best way is via text.
Via text?
Via text or through email. I'm also on Facebook, so you can contact me through Messenger on Facebook. I have an Instagram. I'll try to be more active, but if anybody needs to, slide in the messages there,
What's your Instagram? What's your Instagram?
My Instagram is Fitzpith, FITZPIPH.
PH. There you go. And then also your email. You have an email address. People can contact you that way too.
Yes. My email is E as in Echo, F as in Frank, I as in India, T as in Tom, Z as in Zebra, 95@gmail.
Awesome. There you guys. You got it right here. There it is down below. So you can contact student Dr. Piff. Contact her. Also, guys, that leads us to the question of the day. What did you learn today that maybe you didn't know beforehand, or and or how are you going to implement that into your application process? Put that comment right down below here. Want to hear from you, want to hear your feedback, and want to hear how you are going to now implement some of the advice and some of the things that student Dr. Piff shared with us, okay? Also, for more feedback, if you want to hear more topics or different topics, shoot me an email right down here at newdentistcoach@gmail.com, newdentistcoach@gmail.com. Also, we just launched a new website at thenewdentistcoach.com, thenewdentistcoach.com. We're going to be instituting a scholarship program as part of a giveaway. We're going to be giving away 4 of those IDEA Dental Explorer list so that you guys can get more information about dental schools, so that you have some breakdowns, how you can compare and contrast and start formulating your list of dental schools. So that'll be coming out real soon. All right. Again, student Dr. Epiphany, thanks so much. And congratulations to you.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you. You're going to love it at Tufts. Say hi to my buddies up there, future DDS, Tyler Brown and Terrell Friday. All right.
Definitely will.
Yeah, thanks so much. And you guys, check out this next video coming up right here. Check that out. Hopefully that'll help as well. All right. Best of luck to you, and thanks so much. We will be talking to you soon.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.